get into the subject.
Welcome back to another episode of On the Subject. I'm your host, Michael Vilardo, and we're so excited today. We have an incredible guest, a music powerhouse, producer, and Tufts graduate. He's an elephant.
Yes.
Rob Resnick, thank you for joining the show today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so we're really excited because we always want to be able to interact with the best people on pop culture, sports, music, and academics, and everyone has had their own education experience. And, that's what I think is so fun about what we do at Subject, is everyone's gone to at least attempted high school, and many have gone to college. You've done an incredible job with your education, and now you're in the music scene in LA. Tell us about that journey. Like, what high school did you go to? You're from North New Jersey. Did you go to private school, public school? What was that like as a young kid and you wanting to be a musician in LA?
Yeah, I went to public high school, Montclair High. Go Mounties.
Let's go, Mounties.
07.
Yeah.
High school was great. I was in a lot of bands. I did, a decent amount of music stuff. I was in some of the theater productions, playing guitar, that kind of stuff. I did Battle of the Bands. I was in emo bands. Yeah,
yes.
It was great. And then college, I went to school, obviously at Tufts in Boston, and also ended up being a music major. I originally thought I was going to be an electrical engineer and switched to music and philosophy, so really decided math was too hard for me. I guess both high school and college were great for music.
So when you switched to the music major, did you get any pressure from friends and family say, oh, are you sure you want to go into music? Do you want to keep your option? Or do you say, hey, this is my passion. I'm going to make it work no matter what, and I'm taking agency over my education?
I think my mom was really great about it. I give her a lot of credit. Like, she never once was like, are you sure, or is this a good idea? That said, I was really good at math in high school, so I really thought I was going to be able to do it. And freshman year was like, oh, Diffie Q is way harder than I thought. I was drinking a little, probably too much, and was like, I can't do both. Like, have a social life and be an electrical engineer. So I think I sort of had to switch. She was great about it, I guess. I'm sure there were people that were like, are you sure? If somebody told me now they were majoring in music, I might be like, are you sure? So I get completely how both sides are true, but no, everybody was super supportive.
And how did you choose Tufts? So you want to go to school in Boston. It's an incredible university. I believe it's like top 30, top 40 in the entire country. Like, great school. Yeah, how did you find it?
I applied to like 8 or 9 schools. Tufts was the best one that I got into, I guess. It was that, or Rochester was the other one I was really considering.
Yeah, it's a great school.
Their music program, you could only do engineering or music, and you couldn't do both. As Eastman Kodak, I think. And I didn't want to have to choose, so I figured at least at Tufts I can take some music classes. Thankfully, that worked out because I ended up switching.
So did you get into the frat music business scene at Tufts? Or like, how did you start dipping your toe into having a business around music?
Yeah, so I, freshman year, started a band with some friends. It's like, I guess, just what you do. I was a guitar player, but I met this kid who was much better at guitar than me, so I decided I'd play drums. How hard could it be? I thankfully was like decent. We started that band, then that led me to meet the singer of that band that became Timeflies. Why did we focus on that? I'm not really sure. It was just kind of fun, I guess. Like, the frat thing was part of it because we were in a frat together, but it... Okay,
what frat were you in? Let's shout it out.
Okay, so we were in API.
Nice. Okay, shout out API.
So the real story is that I wanted to be a DJ to basically just pay bills so I could have money. Yeah. And so one of our friends, my freshman year, owned speakers. He was a terrible DJ. I was a very good DJ, but didn't own speakers. And so me and this kid would DJ these parties. He would do all the setup, and we would split the money. That guy ended up becoming our long-term Timeflies manager. And
that's
we
amazing.
Built the whole thing together. Yeah, Jared. So it is like a frat story, kind of, because I was DJing all these frat parties with the gear.
Oh, it's an incredible group.
Yeah.
When we were able to get you to join the pod, I was so excited. I'm a huge fan of your work. I really like your Owl City remixes.
Thank you.
I was a big Owl City fan growing up. And then, also Kesha, shout out Kesha.
Yeah.
And so many great other artists.
Yeah,
I hope I'm not basing it to, too minimalistic. But you all came together, and a lot of folks don't realize that music, the business side of it, is so challenging. It's very much like a startup. You were co-founders.
Yeah.
You founded something. You had to believe in it before anyone else. You have to start at the bottom. You have to work your way up. Talk about some of the hardest times, if you don't mind, about starting a group and what that's like, and how a lot of people don't see those behind the scenes.
So I think, firstly, the other guys who were involved, we had a little management team, and then me and Cal. they were entrepreneurial leadership majors or minors or
Nice.
something like that. So they really like had spreadsheets and they were
Yeah.
like into the whole business side of things. I think that helped me become good at that, and I like to think that's why I'm now like doing okay. Is like we all got good at finance, but I think also just like on a work perspective, we were both just really hungry and driven, and you know that obviously leads to successful businesses. Yeah, I guess what you're asking me like why would the
Well,
business was
no,
so
well, a
successful?
couple of things, but actually that's a really good tangent there. So a lot of folks, especially, we're in LA, it's an incredible city, a lot of great energy, creative energy. If you're, an athlete, artist, maybe you don't need school, but it seems like school did help you guys. It helped, and one, it helped you meet your
For sure,
co-founders.
for sure.
And so I think we a lot of times neglect to understand how important the social and emotional intelligence school provides you just by being in a group of people who are also ambitious and
Yeah.
exploring themselves. But it sounds like you actually had some tactical skills from school that have helped you with Time Flies.
Yeah, I hope that in 20 years when I have a kid who's going to college that there is still college. I
Yep.
think it was like a great experience.
I'm a big believer in college.
Yeah, I had a
agree.
lot of fun.
Yes,
At least
a
that.
lot of fun, yeah.
I did end up meeting obviously a co-founder,
Yeah.
so like that was great. I don't know how much of the education I currently use, but I think about it a lot. So like philosophy major was fun, and I'm glad I did that. And music was good also. Yeah.
Well, let's actually. I want to pause you there because I think we have a lot of parallels, and I completely
Yeah.
agree. And so I think that's one of the challenges. You look at high school or college, and sometimes you're like, why does someone need to learn this? And a lot of it, I actually believe they don't necessarily need to learn, which is, something that's a little bureaucratic and we need to work through. The other piece of it, however, is the way of training your brain to be able to show mastery
Yeah.
or focus on
Yeah,
something and bring
100%.
that to another parallel. I can't even imagine how much time you spend, building music and being able to work with incredible colleagues. What's that like having to train your mind and be able to do such deep work for hours on end in the music field?
Yeah, I hear you on maybe that came from like high school writing papers or like hyper focused work. I personally have the problem of when I start working on music, like this sounds so lame, but like hours go by and I'm like, oh my god, I haven't eaten today.
That's the
or,
best
like,
thing in the
yeah,
world. You're in the
yeah,
flow state.
yeah, for sure.
And that's what we
Yeah.
all want. We want to
Yeah.
lose track of time.
Yeah.
You want to be obsessed.
I really had to stop today to make it here. I was like, I have set like multiple alarms. Like it was really hard. Yeah, I guess maybe that comes from school. I think.
Oh, and I'm not necessarily even saying it comes from school. I want to
Yeah.
make it clear there, and I appreciate your feedback. I think finding your passion, obsession is our goal with
Yeah.
everything, and
Yeah.
hopefully school can allow you to find that as soon as possible. Like, hopefully school
Yeah.
help you find music. Hopefully school help me find tech entrepreneurship. But school is a tool to help us get the most fulfilling life possible. But if school is not helping you get the job you want, then what is the point of school? Is
Yeah,
school really
yeah.
helping you? And that's
Yeah.
probably the issue with the current system is a lot of people don't find out what they want to do till they're 35, 40, 45, and they may feel it's too late. Or they don't even ever find it their whole life, but you were
Yeah.
able to find it early and you went to pounce on it. Did you move to New York or LA right away? Or tell us about
Yeah.
that.
So we were really lucky that our senior year when we graduated, we moved into Cal's house for a few months and made an album, and it went like to number 8 on iTunes, and it was this whole big
Amazing.
moment for us. So then I was like, okay, I'm not getting a job. So yeah, that was really. I mean, I don't know if it was lucky. It was a good album, but like it was lucky. You know what I mean? So
You earn your own luck.
yeah, for sure. I also think while we're just having this general conversation, like I am obviously hugely pro music education. I think that's
Yeah,
just
yes.
school is a part of that, but obviously there's like other things that you can do to learn about music or anything else.
Yeah, so I think I love this, captivating this moment here. And, one of the best advice I ever got was you get a once in a lifetime opportunity every 6 or 7 months or so. And it's how many do you actually take advantage of
Yeah.
and make happen? So you're saying, and like earn your own luck, etc. You hit number 8 on iTunes.
Yeah.
What do you do from there? Like, how did you captivate that moment? Were you still, so you're in Cal's house this time, then where do you go?
Then we moved into New York to Brooklyn
Nice.
actually for
Brooklyn,
a year.
okay, where? Williamsburg,
I lived in
Dumbo?
Crown Heights.
Nice, there we go.
For a year. Yeah, it was a rough year. Then we made it to Manhattan.
The journey's the fun part,
Yeah,
though, right?
no,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was.
yeah.
It was a great time. It was a great time. Yeah, I think that was one of the best years of my life. Actually, looking back on it, it was like the hardest we ever worked. I was up every night until 4 a.m. and we were like making giant cold brew packs,
Yes.
and like it was just great. Would I do that again now? Probably not. But yeah, it was good and very, I guess, lucky. Yeah.
And so, how did you maintain that relationship with other folks in your group? Like, how was that? Because, interpersonal relationships is such a big part of life, and especially in business. And if you can't have uncomfortable conversations, disagreements, and be able to work through things, you're not going to have a long shelf life. And, I think about even with my co-founders and, so lucky to be able to build with them, have a really good relationship with one of them. And he was a groom to my wedding. And whereas the other one, obviously wish him all the best, but it's a really challenging time, don't get to interact with him as much. Like, how have you maintained such a great relationship?
With those people specifically, or I mean, I guess just people I work with in general, I think it's really important, especially for me now working with like other people too, to remember that I can have a very separate music relationship with somebody from my like hanging relationship, and I want them both to exist, but like I can not necessarily, and I don't mean this specifically about anyone, but like not want to hang out with somebody, but love making music with them.
Completely
and
agree.
vice versa.
Yes.
And like being able to separate that. I think when I was younger, it was like you needed both.
Yep.
It was like, if we can't have a beer right now, like it's not going to work. And now I work with a lot of, younger singers that are living a very different life than I'm living. But the idea is like I can still hang and be like cool in the room and make music with you, and then I go watch TV and you go to the club or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think that's important.
So what brought you to Los Angeles? Why are you out here?
So after a few years in New York, we sort of were flying here like every few months, and it was just like, we got to make the trip. It's like, it's time to do it. So yeah, I guess after 3 years in Manhattan, we moved to New York, and I've now been here since, so like 8 years.
What part of LA's have you lived in so far?
I lived in Santa Monica for 4 years, I think. And now I live in Encino.
And so with the music industry changing so much, with the rise of TikTok, what's your perspective on how you've always had to adapt? And, that's another piece we talk about with, not just education, but learning. You always have to, one, love learning, but be able to learn how to learn.
Yeah.
You've probably had to change your business model in the way that you approach things, because when you entered the space, 10, 15 years ago, it's very different than it is today. How have you adapted to the TikTokification of music and just overall attention spans?
So, firstly, thank God I'm not an artist right now, right? Like, that seems like a lot of work. And without sounding too depressed about it, I think the industry has changed in a way that I don't know that I would want to be an artist in today's climate. It's just really hard.
It's so hard.
And different. Like, it's not
so
as
hard to stand out now,
centric.
too.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I thankfully now work with artists, and so it's like a completely different job. But I like to think, at least from a production standpoint, or whatever it is, the job, I think I'm a very good learner, and I like trying things. So like I like to buy new gear and see what it sounds like. I'm spend way too much money on synths that I probably don't actually need, but it's like fun to try something new and learn a new instrument or record something, mess it up, see how it works. So I think that has been useful to me. I think a lot of people are also very good at one thing, and they tend to like really drill in on that. I think I'm decent at a lot of things. So it's like it's fun for me to try new things, and I get to be in new genres or work with new artists that, maybe make music that I don't necessarily listen to, but now I'm like, cool, I'm doing country, and like that's awesome. Yeah.
So what's it like communicating, building relationships, and teaching Gen Z musicians versus when you're working with more millennials or boomers?
Man, respectfully, it is hard.
Yeah.
It's a different thing. I think people are on their phones more, and I'm like in
they love
sessions
the phone,
with certain artists that are like just FaceTiming and are, not even really present, and it's a little weird. At the same time, then you meet a kid who's like 17 and so talented in there, and you're like, yes, like if you can, get out of the TikTok world and like be here for a minute, like you're really going to make it. So I think it's a scary world, and like honestly, I hope by the time that my kids are a little older, like, that they're not living the exact same life as social media is created right now, because I think it's really hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
So where do you discover most of your talent?
I thankfully work with a wide enough network of people that they'll reach out and say, do you want to work with this person, this person, this person? And I can go listen to some of their music, or, I look them up on social media. I hate myself for saying that. And be like, this looks cool, I want to work on it,
But social media is really the modern day resume. And whether you're in music or any industry, look at the, normal professional industry, LinkedIn. I even think about subject. I can't imagine the last time I've looked at a resume. I look at their LinkedIn, and, obviously there's pros and cons to that, but social media is the modern day resume.
Yeah, it's tough because on the one hand, I do it, right? Like I look every time. At the same time, like a few hours ago, one of my high school friends who runs a bar. He texted me with one of his bartenders makes music, and he sent me a video of this guy playing guitar. And it's unbelievable. Like, I was just like, wow, this is so good. But it's some guy who's a bartender, and he's 20-something in Nashville, and I'm like, I don't know. I know that if I were a label, I'd be like, you have to go get a TikTok following and the whole. And like, I'm a little sad that that's the world we live in, where like your talent is not necessarily as important anymore. At the same time, you know, sometimes there are people with a gazillion followers, and like that can be also really useful when they release a song. So like, I see both sides.
Yeah, the distribution is really powerful, and you know, don't hate the player, hate the
Yeah,
game. And
yeah,
I completely hear you on the
100%,
difficulties.
Yeah.
How do you know? You talked about the 17-year-old that's super talented. How do you know when someone's the best at your craft?
Honestly, and this is like a ridiculous answer, but I think I don't. And I think I'm like coming to terms with realizing that like I do believe that when we make a really good song, that I know it's really good. And that's probably happened 5 times in my career where I'm just like 100% sure on something, and it ends up I'm right. Like you just know when you know. But in terms of do I know that about an artist, I think growing up I've realized that like I'm not an A&R. Like that's somebody else's job. I'm not a record label exec. That's somebody else's job. I'm surely not a social media expert. Like what I'm really good at is taking somebody who other people think is good and is good, and then like milking a great song out of them. And so like that's my skill set. And if somebody says this is dope, like they might be right and I should try it.
So if you were to ascribe someone to be the best producer in the world, what would you do from ages 10 to 20?
Make a lot of music. I think it's
get the reps in.
Yeah, get the
Bucks
reps in.
on that.
100%. Yeah, I think I could say like you should learn music theory, or you should learn piano, or like whatever it is. But then I meet people who don't know those things, and they're better than me, and I'm like, wow, maybe I'm wrong. I think it's just they've spent a lot of time trying stuff, making bad music, and then eventually making stuff that's really good.
So what do you say a parallel is similarly? You know, it's a means then, or like even education in a way, as a means to getting to where you want to be. And so, for instance, if you wanted to be an investment banker, if you could just immediately go intern and be an investment banker, it probably would be the best training for you. But you probably couldn't get that internship without getting into said top school, which in order to do that, you need to do good on your ACT, SAT, in high school. And so everything's more of a means to an end. But that passion for learning and getting better and smarter, that really strives from getting the reps in. Yeah. And when you do the reps every single day, you're actually learning more about that space than anything else.
For sure. I think the weird one about music is that like, and this is true, I guess, in other things too, but like, if you want to be an investment banker, you do kind of have to learn the investment banking system. And yes, you can innovate, I guess, a little, but like you're really learning the system.
Yep.
In music,
it's very creative.
I like to know the system. Like I'm a very like math music person, but I think there are people who don't know the system and do their own weird thing and use their own weird gear and do things in a way I wouldn't put plugins in the wrong order, whatever it is. I can get really specific, but they're really dope because they just follow no rules. So it's like, it's really a weird thing with music where for me, I like to know the rules, but I don't know if I believe that's like core important.
So what do you think about, you spend time in New York and LA and you're talking about potential other cities where people are at, is going to where the talent is at for your industry and how important that is. In music, I imagine it's probably pretty difficult. And if you maybe would you say Nashville's helpful as well, or there's really like 5-6 cities in the U.S., or do you think there's really only 2 or 3 cities in the U.S. where it's really a chance to be able to launch your music career today?
I think that for the next few years, or at least the very foreseeable, short-term future, it's still LA, Nashville, probably Atlanta, Miami, maybe New York. Yeah. But at the same time, I miss the days of flying into LA, being like, I have 2 weeks to write as many great songs as possible, and then I'm going back to my normal non-LA life, and I'm going to live with my family or whatever people are doing. And there are a lot of artists that fly in and like, they say, I have a few hours to work with you, and then that's all I get. And I think that might be better for the creative process to just be like, I need to work as hard as possible right now. Whereas in LA, we kind of are like, I'm going to cancel the session. Maybe I'll come next week. Like, it's just like, it's LA. I would love, and again, this is like maybe just me, but like, I'd love to get out of here. Like, I would love to live in Hawaii, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Fly here for 2 weeks every 2 months, work as hard as I can, go home and work on it somewhere stunning and beautiful and relaxing. I think LA is not necessarily the climate that it used to be. I don't mean even just the climate, although that also. But I assume that like New York is probably having a better scene than it used to. I love Nashville. I wish I could spend more time there. I think there are obviously reasons also that it's not necessarily for me, but like I think country and just the scene and the work ethic there is so great. I don't love Miami, but like every time I'm there, I'm like, maybe I actually do love Miami.
Yeah.
Like that might be a great place to spend more time. Yeah, I also think you can get a lot done from a laptop now. So like again, 10 years ago, it was just a different thing, and now like maybe I could go live in Paris for 5 years and still be really like I have no idea. Yeah, it's the internet is crazy, right?
It really is. No, I love the passion and
Yeah.
the intellectual curiosity
Yeah.
that you bring to the space.
Thanks.
You know, when you're able to look back at, you know, the last 15 years, what was the most monumental moment for you?
That's so hard. I mean, I think in music, obviously, I was the most excited to have a platinum record that we wrote and produced by ourselves. I think that was just like really, really cool. And I'm obviously so for collaboration, but like a lot of our successful records were with other people. And having one that was just the two of us and that outperformed those just felt like really, really special. Obviously now, you know, that was, I don't know, however many years ago. Now I'm like, that's not something I think about on a daily basis. But at the time, it was really, really cool. Also, it's really cool to see your music on TV just in general. Like, I remember seeing, and this is like not the dopest thing, but we had a song in the Rose Bowl. And it
Oh,
was
wow.
just like, at the time, this was again so long ago,
Yeah.
but it was like, wow, like TV and our songs. Like, that was just really cool. I think when you're young, smaller things are really exciting. And like, you know, I don't want to lose that feeling, but like I think that's just something that you have in your early 20s and like was the dopest moment, and it is what it is, you know?
Yeah, and would you say that that's a big piece that you'd advise young people is like really, you know, as much surface area for luck as possible by really working hard in your 20s and meeting as many people as
Yeah,
possible, really
100%.
networking and hustling and, you know, putting
Yeah.
yourself out there and taking risk. And it's okay to, you know, mess up or fail, but if you can learn as fast as possible and be putting yourself out there, it's a really special time in your 20s.
Yeah, I worked so, so hard, and I didn't even realize it at the time. And now you look back on it, you're like, wow, I could never work that hard now. And I just like physically couldn't, right? Like, it was wild. And I suggest that obviously to anyone, work as hard as you can when you're younger because you won't want to later. But also, I think it's like, I will forever, in like, not really a sad way. I think it's just like real. Be like chasing that energy. And like as you get older, you just don't want to be in the studio till 8 a.m. like creeched out, right? Like, but like those were the best times. And I think, yeah, it's even if it doesn't end with success, it will end with happiness if you spend that time like really honing in on your craft.
I love that, and no, I really appreciate how much you're obsessed with the craft of music and just truly shows why you've been able to become such a music powerhouse.
thank you.
And I'm really
Thank you.
indebted for
Thank
your time today. And the one piece I'd love to wrap this up with and be able to put on your table is if you were to base it down to any educational experience you've had, whether it was at Tufts or when you were in, you know, Northern New Jersey high school, you know, what teacher would you like to give a shout out to and
Okay.
how they changed your lives?
All right, I'm going to try to nail them all. It's hard. I have to be honest with you. I think about, this is so lame, but I think about all the time what my Grammy acceptance speech would be. That's just like
Yes, I love
that's
this.
a
Let's
thing
go.
that
Let's
we
manifest
think about.
it.
And I'm sure they would cut me off also, but I always practice in my head that I'd like to thank all my music teachers that I like, my guitar teacher, my piano teacher, my drum teacher. I think those people don't get enough credit. Both societally and just like, why does nobody thank their piano teacher
Yeah.
at the Grammys? Like, it's so obvious that person was so key to your success. Anyway, so very briefly, I had Anna Katz Nelson was my classical piano teacher. I loved her. She was a genius. She taught me, I want to say, like almost the foundation to everything I know. After that, I had Matt King, who was my jazz piano teacher. He was also a genius. Showed me that you don't have to follow all the rules. Thank God for jazz. Josh Rubin, my guitar teacher. Love that guy. What a guy. Then I had Renato Malavasi was my drum teacher. Unbelievable. And then the teachers were Mr. Best, Mr. Ward. My college teachers were great too, but honestly, I think by that point you've kind of decided who you are. And I think my like high school teachers were the ones that really like forced me to try a synthesizer. You know, yeah. Those are all my music teachers. Yeah. Yeah.
That was beautiful, and that's why what we're doing here at Subject is so important, and it's truly my life's work because we are helping students at the most formidable years, 14 through 18, and have the ability to find themselves like you did, and
Yeah.
we hope that they can become incredibly fulfilled adults, and love your music, love everything
Thank
you've
you.
been able to share with us today, and thank you so much for impacting the world in a positive way. And so this is another incredible episode of On the Subject. We're so indebted for our guest here today. I'm ready to go listen to some Time Flies. I
Let's
hope you
do it.
are all as well. Let's get some boosts on the Spotify, and we're ready for the Grammy acceptance. We're rooting for you, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.